Welcome to the Empowerment Zone with Ramona Houston, where we zone in on Black and Brown relations and our journey to empowering our communities.
Thank you for joining the Empowerment Zone. I am your host, Ramona Houston. People are what make the world go round, and it is people, it is through people, it's through relationships that you're able to make a big impact on your communities, nation, and your world. It is such a pleasure to have you to join me today. Welcome to the Empowerment Zone. I am your host, Ramona Houston, and today our topic is connecting people, raising funds, and impacting lives. And today our guest is Dr. Carolyne Opinde, and I am so excited to have Dr. Opinde here with us. She is founder and CEO of the NGO Whisperer. Dr. Carolyne Opinde is an award-winning global consultant and social entrepreneur providing technical support to non-governmental organizations, also called NGOs, in Africa, Europe, North America, Latin America, and the Caribbean so that they can successfully impact lives. Dr. Opinde believes that socioeconomic development within low-income communities can be achieved by connecting people, raising funds, and impacting lives. Dr. Opinde is a seasoned resource mobilization and business development specialist with over 15 years of experience in the nonprofit sector. Her knowledge and expertise in international development has impacted communities across the globe. She has raised over $100 million in US dollars and managed various projects within the US, totaling over $20 plus million. Dr. Opinde's commitment to making a difference in people's lives is especially among women, girls, and children in underserved communities led her to establish the NGO Whisperer in 2008 as a consulting business with a global reach that provides technical support to nonprofits and social enterprises so that they can successfully impact people's lives. She is founder and CEO of the NGO Whisperer Global Consulting. She is editor-in-chief of the NGO Whisperer magazine, and she is host and producer of the NGO Whisperer show. She is an international speaker and evangelist for social entrepreneurship, and she has received numerous recognitions and her awards for her contributions in resource mobilization and leadership development. Dr. Opinde is originally from Kenya and now lives with her husband, Jose, in Manchester, United Kingdom. She enjoys cooking. Can't wait to eat some of her food, African and Portuguese delicacies, and running. I'm a runner too. I don't know if you knew that. So welcome, Dr. Carolyne Opinde. Great to have you here on the Empowerment Zone.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor and a pleasure to be here on the Empowerment Zone, and I am so excited. Thank you.
Well, you know, we had you a few weeks ago to talk about women's economic empowerment conference. And as you were talking, I was like, I need to have her just as a guest, not just talking about that upcoming event that both you and I serve at on the planning committee for, but actually to talk about your great work in empowering people across the world and really making a social impact. And so I'm really happy to hear from you and to hear about this great work that you are doing. So before we get into your topic, can you tell our audience a little bit about who you are, your evolution in social entrepreneurship, and just tell us a little bit about the NGO Whisperer and what you do through that particular firm?
Thank you so much, Dr. Houston. It's always a pleasure and an honor to be here. I'm Kenyan, and I started out my journey studying mathematics and chemistry at the University of Nairobi. And in my last year at the university, normally in Kenya, we go for your bachelor's degree is 4 years. So in my 4th year, I had the privilege of being selected to be one of the few peer educators that were trained by a HIV and AIDS prevention program for youth. It was a social behavior change communication program that had just been started. And I was honored and privileged really to be one of the few. They had 180 students out of a population of over 20,000. So I was chosen to be a peer educator, went through 3 months of peer education training. And that's when the switch clicked to work in the nonprofit sector. Because of my involvement with this organization that's called I Choose Life Africa, it still exists to this very day as one of the leading behavior change communication. And now they have even gone further to include economic empowerment and spiritual mentorship for young people. So then I completed my course and became a peer educator and an advocate in the prevention of HIV and AIDS among university students. Today, the organization has gone further and excelled and become really bigger than what it was. But then something happened when I finished my undergraduate, which was in mathematics and chemistry. One Sunday evening, one of peer educator leader asked me, would you be interested to work for I Choose Life? Because Mike, the founder of I Choose Life, he's an engineer by profession, but got into the nonprofit sector, is looking for people like you. And we noticed that you are very enthusiastic. So if you have time tomorrow, which is the following day on Monday, Mike would like to have a chat with you at the I Choose Life offices. So then I went. At that point, I had just completed my examinations, final exams for my undergraduate, who was still waiting for the results to come out. And in between, I was interning with a research firm, which was not very far away from where the I Choose Life offices are. So then I asked for permission in the morning at 10 o'clock. I was sitting there having a conversation with Mike, and I was waiting for the interview to start. And after 5 minutes, he asked me, what are you doing right now? And I said, I am interning with a research firm, and I want to be a researcher. And at that point, some of my sisters were encouraging me to be a chemical engineer. So I was busy applying to universities in Germany to be considered for a master's level in chemical engineering. And so I told Mike, these are my dreams. This is what I would like to do. And Mike told me, would you be interested in a job immediately? And I said, yeah, I'm interested to volunteer. I'm available and all that. He said, no, I mean with a salary, and you come here Monday to Friday, work for us. I was like, I didn't realize you guys had money to hire people. So that's my journey into the nonprofit sector. Of course, you know, when I was young, I got involved in a lot of nonprofit work, but then I didn't call it nonprofit. Like, none of us were thinking it's nonprofit. We were just doing good in the community. So then with the new job that I got with I Choose Life, I worked for them for 5 years. After that, I thought to myself, I've learned a lot in the nonprofit sector. The project was funded by the UK government. Previously, they were known as the DFID, Department for International Development. Now they are known as UK Aid. And they funded that program for 5 years. And at the end of it all, I thought to myself, I really love this work in the nonprofit sector. And I was kind of thinking, like, let me do this for 5 years, and then I can go back and do my master's at the university and maybe specialize in something like statistics or maybe chemical engineering. My mind wasn't really made up. And at that point, the work that I did gave me so much satisfaction, and it was paying me well. So I thought, okay, let me get some international experience and see what international development is all about. And that's when, again, I volunteered to go to any country around the world with this organization called Voluntary Services Overseas. It's the largest volunteer placement program. It places qualified professionals to work and build capacity of organizations in low and middle income countries, to build their capacities and then to empower the people within that organization to run with the programs that they've started. So I applied to VSO, and they gave me two options to go to Malawi, one of the poorest countries in Africa, and South Africa. And those two countries are very different. And the project in Malawi wasn't really close to my heart because I was very intrigued by work around youth, women, and children. And in Malawi, it was a mix of community work, but there was farming, engaging with farmers and all that. And I had a conversation with my mom. And at that point, my mom was like my mentor, my coach. I didn't have any professional coach at that time, apart from, people that I was working with. So then my mom asked me, what do you want to do in future? And I said, I would like to really work with young people, women, and children, and elevate them in the society in whichever way I can. It really doesn't matter whether it's going to be health, education, or any other sector, but something to do with women and girls and children. And the organization in South Africa was an organization that empowers women, works with women across different sectors. There's advocacy with parliamentarians. There was also work related to inmates in correctional facilities, empowering women who have been sentenced because they either killed or retaliated on their abusers. And they would work with those women who are defending themselves and in the process either killed the rapist or the person who was abusing them or someone who had been abusing them since they were children. And I felt this is very close to my heart because some of those women had been abused for a very long time. And this incident happened and they either stabbed or killed or whatever happened, And so the situation is they are in prison because of what they did on a shorter sentence, because it's normally they are jailed as not life imprisonment in South Africa, but more like manslaughter, and they're given a few years, but they're still in jail. And they need support because the abuser or the perpetrators sometimes are even not in jail. Or part of the family of the perpetrators continue to do this. And so there's that support system that these women need. So when they come out, they can be somebody's. So this program had computer training, literacy, supporting these women if they were teenagers by the time they went to jail to help them get their high school diploma. And this was tutoring them and helping them. And my role there was literally to raise money for these programs. So my mom said, yes, go for that one. That seems so much aligned with what you do and what you've been doing. So that's when I went to South Africa, worked there for 1 year, was transferred to Johannesburg. That was in Cape Town, South Africa. Was transferred to Johannesburg for 2 years. Then I worked with religious leaders who are living with HIV, which was quite a different sector.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yes. So then I worked with them for 2 years. And these are religious leaders, not just African, but around the world. And they're all living with HIV, or they have children, or they have family members, close, immediate family members who are living with HIV, and they have to deal with it in their congregations and support their family members as well as support their congregations. So there's a lot of stigma, discrimination in faith communities when a religious leader discloses that they are living with HIV, because most of these congregations, regardless of their faith, whether they're Christian, Muslims, Baha'i, Sikh, Hindu, whichever faith they are, because they're all there, the religious leaders are really stigmatized because HIV is synonymous to immorality.
Mhm.
And so some of them don't even take their medication because of that. So that drew me, spent 2 years there, helped them raise funds for programs. And the programs are implemented in a number of countries. And that's when I began to really see what international development is, because I was working with religious leaders and country networks from around the world. So that was very interesting. But then VSO doesn't hire you as a volunteer forever. You have a contract, and the maximum you can go is 3 years. And I maxed my 3 years off working with them. So then again, I looked at an organization that was working with women and children, and I found this amazing organization that hired me to be their business development officer, and then went through the ranks to the time that I left in 2018 as a senior business development manager. And I helped them to raise funds for different programs, but most importantly, it was for the prevention of mother-to-child transmission of HIV, simply helping mothers who are living with HIV not to transmit it to their babies. And also started on an adolescent program, which started while I was there. And then there was also another program on early childhood development. So all these are experience that I gathered throughout the years in employment until 2018, which is about 2 years ago. Actually, it was on the 9th of March, 20.
Oh, wow. So you're about to have an anniversary, huh?
I have an anniversary coming, and it's not just the job anniversary. I was also married on the 9th of March.
Oh, congratulations.
2019. So, so 1 year later, I married my husband, Jose, who is Portuguese, lives here in the UK, and then I'm Kenyan. I was living in South Africa. And so March is a really important month for me. Again, just to say, when I relocated from Kenya to go to South Africa, it was in March.
Wow, that's a time for you. The zodiacs in March. That's your time, huh? To make all these transitions and changes, huh?
Absolutely, those big decisions and changes and transitions have happened in the month of March. So this is a very special month, also because it is International Women's Month. You know, we celebrate the International Women's Day on the 8th, and the whole month we are honoring women. So it's very special, and I'm just honored to be here in March.
Well, I am so happy to have you. So we can say that we had Dr. Carolyne during the month of March twice. So we can put that on the calendar, right? Yeah. So I am really, really excited to have you here today. And thank you so much for telling us about your background, because it really puts your work in context, to see why you have a global perspective in terms of impacting people's lives and the work that you do. So tell us about you. Your topic today is connecting people, raising funds, and impacting lives. What is your perspective on that?
Absolutely. So this came, and you can see the banner for those who will be watching. I don't know. This is a podcast, but I have a banner behind me that says connecting people, raising funds, impacting lives. That is what I call the NGO Whisperer sustainability model for nonprofits. So why connecting people? I believe that when people are connected with one goal, with one vision, they can do anything that they want to do. So connecting people is really important to us here at the NGO Whisperer, because as we work with nonprofits around the world, and most of our clients who are nonprofits are small and medium-sized nonprofits who may not have the capacity and the budget to hire a business development manager or specialist. And so that is why we believe that when we connect with one another, we can do amazing things. But then I also know that you can connect with so many people, but when you don't have the resources to do the work that you need to do, you won't go far, because wishful thinking and hoping is not a strategy for impacting lives. You need money. And so that's why raising funds is there. And lastly, when you have connected people, when you have raised funds, we expect you to impact lives beyond your own life. So that's why we have our tagline, connecting people, raising funds, and impacting lives.
So tell us about some of the work that you do with some of these nonprofits to make sure that they are impacting lives.
Absolutely. Thank you. We offer 6 different types of services. So the first one is obviously raising funds, which is what many of our clients who come to us asking for help, they come and they say, Carolyne, we would like you to help us to raise funds for some of our projects. Or sometimes it's even operational costs that need to be met, whether they are transitioning, expanding physically, or deepening their program model. They come to us and we help them to raise funds. The second one is on project management. I am a project management professional myself. I studied to the master's level, and that is my area of specialty. And one of the things that I noticed, not just with small nonprofits, but also large nonprofits, project management is not very well done in the sense of looking at it as a way to build relationships. And I'll tell you why. Because most nonprofits believe that, okay, we have received funding and we are implementing the project, but they don't see it as a possibility of them using what they're doing as they manage their grants or award management, as others may call it, as a way to build relationship with a donor and get repeat funding, especially with private donors and large family foundations. And so I help nonprofits to be able to bring the human aspect into project management and the way they relate with the funders as they are managing their projects as key stakeholders, and to be able to build relationships to the point that the funders actually invite them to reapply or give them another grant. So that's on project management support. Then we have governance and organizational management. Nonprofits around the world are required by governments, by nonprofit coordinating bodies in different countries. In the US, you have IRS. In South Africa, we have the Department for Social Development. We have CIPRO. We have the South African Revenue Authority. In Kenya, we have the NGO coordinating body. So they are all different. But one thing is for sure, nonprofits are required to have a board. They're required to have officers, office bearers in their organization, regardless of their size. They're required to submit their returns every year, even though they are tax exempt. So many smaller nonprofits struggle to be able to respond or comply to this, and we help them. Also setting up board and ensuring that their board members are actually the right type of leadership and the leadership structure in the organization. The fourth pillar of the NGO Whisperer model for sustainability for nonprofits is compliance and enterprise risk management. So that's something that I did for my research, speaking with funders, and did a research on compliance of rules and regulations, not just with the government, but also with funders and with stakeholders. And we help nonprofits to be able to develop a risk management strategy. Dr. Houston, with COVID, so many organizations realized they did not have a risk management strategy, even though they thought they had one. Yeah, so now we are actually looking at many organizations that we work with and helping them to develop a risk management strategy and building on their past performance, maybe non-performance in this case, because some of them really were not prepared for what has happened now with COVID. And we are now in the second year of this pandemic. And so many organizations still don't have a strategy. Should this pandemic continue to 2022, they don't know what they're going to do. And so organizations are reaching out to me to say, Carolyne, we would like to develop a strategy on how to deal with global pandemic, or even sometimes it could be something simple like, in South Africa, we have times when there is, I say we have because I lived in South Africa for many years. I'm actually in Manchester right now. In South Africa, they have load shedding, which is basically electricity being switched off because there isn't enough for everybody. And nonprofits suffer because, if you are running an office and you need electricity, you need to put a strategy in place to be able to address this. So it's simple things like that to big global pandemic related issues. And so we put a strategy together. And then the fifth one is executive coaching and masterclasses. And we run masterclasses, free masterclasses every month at the end of the month, every Saturday, every last Saturday of the month. Free masterclasses, and we also have paid masterclasses which run for 4 weeks on different topics based on our areas of specialization, which is resource mobilization, project management, governance, compliance, risk management, and many others. So that is number 5. And lastly, we have branding for nonprofits. For nonprofits that we serve, as well as those that we don't serve, we seek to elevate brands for nonprofits by showcasing what they do. And we have our magazines, the NGO Whisperer magazine and the NGO Whisperer show. One thing about our magazine, Dr. Houston, is we purposely decided to only have women on the cover of our magazine.
Interesting.
Yeah. So even though we are not a women serving nonprofit organization, we're not a nonprofit, we are a business. We have decided that we will only feature women because we are elevating women in leadership. And there are so many magazines that showcase men on the cover, especially in business. And women always have to justify why they have to be on the cover. Except for in the entertainment industry, we all know for obvious reasons, they would put a woman there because she's beautiful and she is selling a product. But for professional women who are not showing any skin or anything, they're just there because of their position, it's always very difficult. I found it for myself. I'm speaking for myself and the limited experience that I have. You have all these other men that you have to fight with to be on the cover of our business magazine. And so I thought, I'm going to specifically feature women on the cover. Men can join us, but they will be featured as stories inside the magazine.
I commend you for your vision because that is one of the challenges of recognizing women in leadership positions so that society can be able to see women in other places beyond just beauty on the covers of beauty magazines. So I do commend you for implementing that idea in the NGO Whisperer magazine.
Thank you. Thank you.
So in terms of our audience, who are making impact individually and in the community organizations that they serve, some of them are working as professionals in various organizations, and then some are volunteers. What advice would you give people who are really working diligently in these community organizations in order to maximize the impact they're making, no matter what issue they're working on? What advice would you give them?
There are a number of things that I have noticed, and I will share this because I work with nonprofits every day around the world, and I've noticed a few things. Number one is professionalize everything you do. Have very high standards. Just because you are a nonprofit doesn't mean that you have to lower your standards. If it's a requirement, go to the highest and the best version of what that service or product needs to be. That's number one. So if you are serving a smaller community, provide the best service. If you are providing community service in a health facility, let your health facility be a facility that other people can come to and say, this is a center of excellence. So do not, really do not let go of your standards just because you are a nonprofit. Set the standards, set the mark so high, be excellent in what you do. Because by being excellent in what you do, you are building your brand. Funders will get to hear about you. People will love you, and they will, in turn, without you paying for advertising, they will advertise your services for you and will save you the money that you may need to advertise what you are doing. That's number one, excellence. Number two, I would like nonprofits to really reconsider engaging in generating their own revenue by being innovative and not be 100% dependent on funding. It doesn't matter what you will do, of course it has to be legal, but you can venture into a business using some of the funding or request for individual donors to contribute to you starting a venture that will support some of your core activities or even operational costs. We've seen now with COVID that funding is dwindling, and only nonprofits that had reserve or sufficient reserve to take them through 1 year or more than 1 year are still standing. The rest have closed their doors. So should another pandemic come, we don't want to go through the same thing that we have experienced. Find a way of generating funding. It could be that you are providing training and you have excellent trainers. Why not start an academy where you can train other people who might not be in the nonprofit sector and they pay you? We have done this with one of our nonprofits in South Africa, and an academy that was providing support to only people in an informal settlement in South Africa is now providing services to people around the world through their academy. So that social enterprise arm of their organization is generating an income for them. So that's point number two. Point number three is, do not be afraid to change direction if something is not working for you. Why is that important? COVID pandemic has taught us that there are things that we were doing that won't work post-COVID. If that requires you to be innovative, be innovative. If that requires you to do away with a certain way of thinking or implementation of services, do that. So those are the three things I would urge nonprofits.
That is, yes, that is excellent advice. And this advice is for people who work in nonprofits, whether you're a volunteer, whether you are staff, or whether you are in executive leadership. You have to focus on excellence. Make sure that your organization has high standards. Just because you are a nonprofit doesn't mean that you don't have to represent excellence in your organization. So make sure you have high standards. And because as Dr. Carolyne explains, it builds your brand, builds your reputation, builds the support around you from the community as well as potential funders. So just represent excellence in everything you do. Number two, engage in activities that can generate your own revenue instead of only being focused on one stream of revenue. Figure out how you can create your own stream of revenue, which is a great advice, because once funders dry up, does that mean that your nonprofit is gone? No, it shouldn't, if you have your own stream of revenue. And lastly, don't be afraid to change directions. I think that's great advice. Many times we try something, and then it stays the same, and we continue doing the same because we are afraid to change. So this advice comes from Dr. Carolyne, one of the women in the world who needs to be on the cover of NGO Whisperer magazine on her own, who's making an impact, who's connecting communities, raising funds, and making impact all over the world. So we're so happy to have you here today. Thank you so much for all of that great advice. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And thank you for all the great work that you are doing in our global society.
Thank you so much. It is a great honor and a pleasure.
And you're always welcome to come back to the Empowerment Zone whenever you'd like.
Absolutely. I look forward to coming back and talking about more interesting topics with nonprofits and social enterprises.
Thank you. Today we have Dr. Carolyne Opinde with us, and she is going to give us a strategy for college success. Can't wait to hear her advice. She's got all kinds of advice. Or one of those people who are out there making an impact in the world. So, Dr. Carolyne, can you tell us what schools you attended, what your majors were, majors and degrees, and then what is that one strategy you would give students to make sure they excel in college?
Thank you so much. I attended the University of Nairobi in Kenya, and I studied mathematics and chemistry. And the advice that I would give people at the undergraduate level is sometimes you may not know exactly what you want to do, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go for what you believe at that point is the right thing for you. Many young people are always swayed by their parents or people they look up to study subjects or to study a field just because so-and-so has done it and excelled. And you forget to think about, who do you really want to be? What do you want to do? When I got at the university level and I wanted to study sciences, I was open to study anything, but I always, since I was a child, wanted to be a doctor because my dad was one and we were surrounded by so many doctors. But then I did not make it to be a doctor because they just had very few students who would make it to that class. And in my year in Kenya, it was one of the years where people excelled so much. There were so many people who scored A. A is the highest that you can get, and then there's A minus, B, B plus, and all that stuff. And so very few of us got to medicine, and the rest of us were put in sciences, and you have to choose. And I ended up studying mathematics and chemistry, but I started out with botany, zoology, chemistry, all those things. I attended all those classes. Like my first 1 month, I was literally attending every class to check and see where I fitted most. But then I changed direction. When I got to fourth year, wanted to do a lot of stuff, but then I got into the nonprofit sector. And because of that, for my master's level of education, I decided to study project management with a focus on working with nonprofits, because I found myself in the nonprofit sector, made a decision to do that. So my master's level degree is in project management, and I studied at the University of Salford in Manchester, United Kingdom. And that's when I met my husband on my graduation day.
And then your doctorate?
For my doctorate, it is a honorary doctorate in non-governmental ministries that I was given by the United Graduates College in the United States of America. So those are the 3 degrees that I hold. The highest one being the doctorate is a honorary doctorate level.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that advice for college students, that just work with what your desires are today. If you want to pursue a particular area, pursue what you want because you want to do it, not because someone else says to do it or because you think you need to follow in someone else's footsteps. But pursue your own passions, and you are always welcome to change your passions at any time, as Dr. Carolyne has explained. She started off in the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and math, and evolved to the nonprofit sector. So to you college students, pursue that which you desire and change your mind if you wish. Thank you so much for that advice.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure and an honor. If they always want to reach out to me for advice, they can connect with me at Carolyne, and Carolyne is spelled Carolyne at NGO Whisperer.com.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
A special thank you to the incredible team of the Empowerment Zone. Terry Gully, theme song, NADWorks, digital support, and of course, our featured guest.
If you enjoyed my podcast, please subscribe. We are on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Be sure to rate us on Apple Podcasts too. Thank you for your continued support.